in as much as we have different voice textures, different feel, different, you know, um, you know, voice type, you know, we are also expected to get the best out of the dimension of our voices. As much as my voice would not sound as yours, and yours cannot sound as mine, mine is in itself, or yours is in itself a dimension that has to be harnessed to bring the best out of what is yours. That is why sometimes I don't believe in, you know, measuring who has the best voice and who has the best whatever. Somebody else's voice might sound wonderful to you in your ears and all of that, and at the same time also somebody else's voice in their own texture also has a wonderful feel in that regard. So the ability to harness or strengthen or get the best out of your texture gives your texture the best it can at a particular time, and as much as it can, which becomes the measure to which you can now define or qualify your own kind of voice. I want to welcome you to this class, KMF, and that's Kingdom Music Foundation class, online class 7. Today is the 8th day of June 2024, and this is my time. This is 4 p.m., 4:21 p.m. my time, which is about 5:21 p.m. the Nigeria area time, or Niger area time, the Nigeria time. And today I'm going to be talking about, you know, from the point we're coming, looking at, the narrative of our upbringing and our music culture. Every one of us have developed a manner or a culture around music. And that culture is your tradition or your traditional approach to how you utilize the narrative of music, or you relate with the concept of music. In fact, the truth about it is that by nature, we all have been designed to, you know, by our upbringing and by our background, we have been designed to appreciate a pattern of music, which has become a cultural nature or a cultural tradition to us, in which, of course, it guides or leads or guards our approach to how we relate with music, how we deal with music, and the things we love about music. When it comes to music, there are some kind of genre or some stuff that I may appreciate and you don't appreciate. Even in the same genre type, there is a narrative or a concept or a design, a construct that I might appreciate more, you might not appreciate more, or you appreciate more, I don't appreciate more. All of these things have a way playing around our minds, because our minds have been designed culturally, or have built a cultural pattern to music based on our upbringing. I want you to understand that upbringing has a very strong and significant role to play in the way we appreciate music, or the way we compose music, or we deal with music, or operate with music, and all of that. So I told us the other time that our upbringing, sometimes you listen to your father sing, your mother sing, or the kinds of songs that are played in your household and all of that, or your community, your environment, upbringing, you are exposed to a pattern of music, and it has eaten deep into you, so that anytime you hear that pattern of music, it drives your emotional response to it, and it makes you respond to it based on the fact that your mind has been encapsulated in that pattern of music, and it draws your attention more because you have been emotionally dragged and attached to that pattern of music, so that you are effectively concentrating on that pattern. And the truth about it is that every pattern of music is also unique in itself, so that even if you have a particular audience for a particular kind of music, you can still bring an innovative strategy into that pattern to beautify that pattern. For instance, if you look at conventional music, or let's say look at the classical music, for instance, I grew up in a classical system, of course, even if we had a different approach to it. In the religious circle, when you go to church, we have this classical thing playing to our faces every Sunday or Tuesday class or Sunday service. We had this then in Assemblies of God Church. We had this classical thing playing, and it was like shaping my mind because one thing that governs our cultural disposition towards a particular narrative is religion. And once you are drawn into it in the realm of God, no matter how it is designed, religiously, it stirs your attitude towards how you receive information from that line. So anything that comes from the point of religion affects you strongly because it is connected to your source or to the particular mindset that is connected to God, based on the fact that we know that God is actually the source that we have. And of course, when you hear our Father, it's talking about our source. So that naturally is an emotional trap. So when you hear a pattern of music in church, it becomes an emotional trap to you or to your soul realm because it drives or regulates your mind to accept that pattern as the usual way of expressing yourself through music. So it makes you fall in love with music in that direction based on the fact that you are exposed to it more and it has become attached to your soul realm or your mind based on the fact that it is connected to your religious belief. For instance, if you listen to an average Muslim, and the kinds of music they love, you discover that it is connected to their religious beliefs. When you hear them do those their emotional those their stunts, with their voice around their prayers and all of that. It's now you see that whenever you see them singing, they sing along that line because their mindset have been developed or molded or encapsulated or engrossed with that pattern of expressing themselves in music. So whenever they hear such pattern, they are excited. When you see them having a small radio or whatever they are doing, they're excited about that religious narrative of their songs. But now, of course, as you grow up and you begin to get acquainted to or exposed to lots of other things, coming around, different kinds of music playing around and all of that, you now your mind is developing. That means your reasoning is developing. At the same time, your emotion is also trapped from that narrative of what you began with, but your reasoning is developing. So your reasoning is expanding based on information, but your emotion is already trapped in a pattern that has held you in a particular way to believe that this is what you love. And of course, anything that has to do with love or connection or acquaintance or all of that is on the realm of the mind, or the realm of the emotion, that part of the, that keeps us, attached to something. Now, your reasoning begins to get exposed to lots of information. Different kinds of music begin to come into, and then you, of course, peer pressure begins to come in. What kinds of music youths will love to? The society begins to define the kind of music you think you should love, and now it begins to war with the information you already have in about the kind of music you love based on the fact that you were growing up in a particular field. And based on that fact, some, especially those of us who were not really who didn't have that leverage. Growing up, we were restricted. We go to school, from school, you come back home, from home, you read, you study, you do whatever you have to do. The next day, you are going to school and all of that. So you didn't have that opportunity of mixing with other people and hearing different kinds of stuff and all of that. So you had a routine, listening to the kinds of music in the house, listening to the information in the house, going by the narrative of the house, the culture of the house, and then going to school. And in school, you go, you are taught and all of that. You do some little things in break time. It doesn't really affect your life in that way, but it also has a significance in the information you're receiving at home. So that is why you see that naturally, when the child is growing up, they have this hypocritical way of operating. When they get home, they want to pretend about some stuff that they have gotten, some other information they have gotten from out there. And when they're out there, they want to display that information based on the fact that we are naturally used to things that will excite us. And evil excites more once it's evil. So that is how it is in the realm of music too. Now, what we begin to get when you begin to leave your realm, your house, and you begin to go out there, you begin to hear some other things that excites you more, or that moves the crowd more. You begin to get yourself also acquainted to this, and of course, you want to now marry it with what you have. Now, that is where the uniqueness is. Some of us are finding it hard to actually create innovation or build, or increase beyond what we already know, you know, under the kind of pattern of music because this is a music class, so I'm trying to restrict it to music, although you can relate it to other things, other sphere of your of life, and all of that. So now, how do I now you know, build a narrative or an innovative pattern or a kind of trend using what I already have from background and looking at the audience that is connected to what I already have. For instance, if I'm used to classical music, how do I design or improve my classical approach and merge it with other narrative, other conventional or contemporary style or whatever that is out there, which more people has more of the audience, based on the fact that my composition or my pattern, my response to music, the way I sing, the way I compose, and all of that is stereotyped, is restricted by how I grew up. Now, how do I make myself flexible enough to adopt these strategies that are connected to other genres so that I can penetrate the field or more audience, penetrate more people and have more audience to myself, but out, out of the uniqueness of what I'm already used to. Now, it is a plus because when you have a background, you need a base first to start with. Everything in life, you need a base. So when you start with a particular um, approach in music, or you have a narrative or a style that you grew up with, it is an addition or it is a plus for you when you can now liberate your mind from that stereotype narrative and get your mind flexible to penetrate other genres and allow your mind the liberty to feed on those genres and the strongholds of those genres and bring it into the household of what you're already used to. What I mean by household, that means what your mind or what you are used to, or the culture you have built around yourself, or the tradition of how you express the culture you already have based on your musical, or based on the kind of music you are used to. So now you now begin to see how you can make yourself flexible, your musical approach flexible, your ability to feed, you know, from other genres and feed your culture, your nature, your style. This is where you now begin. This is how trends are created. This is how people can increase their chances of having a new trend. Now we're going to be looking at how do I make my mind of create a flexible mindset that will help me utilize both the natural way I grew up to understand music and the stereotyped pattern I have about music, and still adopt other approaches or style or, or, or others from other points and from other narratives. How do I do that? You know, so you begin to tell yourself that how do I do all of this stuff? Please just give me about 5 minutes. I'll be through with this broadcast and I'll call you back, please. So you tell yourself now, how do I now make myself flexible to deal with these patterns so that I'll be able to deal and operate very, very effectively, right? That is what we that is see that is where the strength is. Let me tell you something. What you are used to is more reveals more of the weak side of your ability to harness other information. Now what I mean is this: what you are used to definitely shows how much you can give out, right? Because what you are used to is what you can present. But the truth about it is that you can't keep presenting a pattern consistently and continuously because it will reveal the weakness of how much you are stereotyped and you cannot really be innovative. So, to create an innovative strategy and structure around what you do, you must have a mindset that is liberal or flexible enough to deal with these narratives and deal with these things. This is what we're going to be learning in the next lesson. Class 8 will give you this information. How do I make my mindset flexible to build on already what I have in that is a culture or traditional way of expressing myself in music? How do I make my mind flexible to begin to feed into other aspects of this whole thing and then give myself a tradition or a new pattern that is going to take me into creating trends for people to enjoy. Thank you so much for being part of this. I want to appreciate it. I don't want it to be more than 15 minutes in every music class. So next class, you're going to have more information on this. Thank you so much. I love you all. God bless you very good.